Hello and welcome back. I'm so glad you are here today. If you haven't noticed by my A, lack of videos, and B, ever-changing backgrounds, I have been working constantly, and so I'm exhausted. But there's always time to make a TikTok video. So that's what we're doing today. So as usual, some are a little more serious, some are funny, but they all have something to say and, I've got opinions. So if this is your first time joining me for one of these, I will of course link the playlist above and down in the comments so you can watch all of these fun videos. But let's get started on this one.
I may get a little hate for what I'm about to say, but one thing that I've always promised you guys is that I would be honest, no matter what, no matter how much the truth hurts. I have been getting quite a few messages this week from several of you on this app, thank you so much, asking, I want to support you, I would like to buy your books as a Christmas present, but at this point, the only thing that I can get shipped quickly enough to make it here by Christmas is the site that shall not be named. Now, and they want to ask how I felt about them purchasing my books from that site. Now, hear me out. I have 8 murder mystery novels, okay? I'm an indie author. I am not speaking about this company as a whole. I'm not speaking about them morally or ethically. I am simply speaking about how they treat us as indie authors, okay? Very well. In my opinion, we are able to upload and publish our books for free. There is 0 charge, okay? Yes, we pay our own cost of editing and, designing the covers and all of those good things and formatting, but to actually publish on that site, it is free. We can set our own prices for ebooks and for paperbacks and decide, what our royalty is. We get paid 35 to 70% depending on the format, depending on how it's priced. We get paid monthly. I mean, we don't get paid until 60 days after the sale is made, but we get paid monthly. And this site that shall not be named makes up about 90% of my income. So you are never going to be hurting my feelings if you are in a pinch and would like to order from that site, either, books for yourself or for a Christmas gift. Now, of course, you guys know me. I will always prefer an indie bookstore because I love the little guys. I'm always fighting for the underdog. I myself support a lot of very small bookstores. Of course, that is what indie authors probably prefer you support. Indie bookstores, indie authors. But should you lose sleep at night because you order our books from that giant website? No. In my opinion, they treat us very well. Again, I'm just speaking for myself. Nothing about the company as a whole, nothing about them morally, just how they treat indie authors. I feel that their system is very fair. So, no matter how you choose to support an indie author, it is so very appreciated. Merry Christmas.
Okay, obviously this must have been from a while ago. I don't know why TikTok does that. Like it will just like scrolling, it shows you videos that are quite old. But it doesn't really matter because this is still a relevant topic. So I feel like that has been really quite a big talking point lately is Amazon versus anything else. And specifically because of Jeff Bezos and just the general like kind of everybody coming to the realization that billionaires are terrible people and so wanting to spend their money elsewhere. And so there's, yeah, been a lot of discussion and talk around, okay, well, Amazon kind of has a monopoly on a lot of things. How do we, how do we get out of it? Like, how can we support something else while, like still enjoying, I guess, the convenience and not really like, I don't know how to explain what I'm thinking, but I feel like we're all kind of feeling the same way, so you might already understand. But I asked in my last TikTok video, because I had a video that was somewhat similar, but it was someone saying that they didn't want to support Amazon at all anymore because of like how harmful it can be, like the Amazon, what is it called? Kindle Unlimited. And so I had even asked in my video, like, I would love to hear from an author's perspective, what is the real thing on this? Because yeah, I feel like it's really an easy and kind of seamless way to get your book published and out there. And like, obviously there are many business practices of Amazon's that I don't agree with, like the bulk of them. But I do think this is a very nice service that they provide. And like, granted, I can't speak from personal experience, but I feel like that's the bulk of what I'm seeing. And I do have another video kind of related to that I want to share next, and then we'll discuss. Before I show you this video, she had made a previous video saying that like we should all get off Kindle Unlimited. It's pretty easy to tell from the context, but I figured I would just mention that as well. And in this video, she's replying to a comment she received on that video.
Okay, I'm going to say what I need to say and then just leave this video here to die, and I'm never going to come back to it because I know people are going to really hate me, but I disagree with this completely. I do not think that this mentality makes any sense. the fact that Amazon and independent authors are now synonymous for one another, and people are saying that if I leave Amazon, I am no longer supporting independent authors, is the best marketing tactic Amazon literally has ever done, and I want to talk to their marketing people. On the consumer side, as a consumer, I should have the grace and the choice to also choose if I want to work and do business with Amazon, just like independent authors have. I know that Kindle Unlimited is the best place for independent authors, especially those on tight budgets, to go and sell their book, and that's how they get paid, and that's a lot of their income. I agree. There have been comments on this video talking about all of this, but I will say that if we continue down this path, Amazon's going to be the only option forever. Do we want the exclusivity for people that are outside of Amazon to never have access to these books? Do we want independent authors to continuously only have to follow Amazon's terms because their business is so reliant on them? If your whole business model is reliant on another business' success, that is a risk that you were willing to take on. It's a shitty risk right now, especially with Amazon being such a big and powerful influence that they are, but that's a risk that those authors were willing to take when they started their business and when they started their career. As a consumer, I should have the same right to say, I don't want to give my money, my hard-earned dollars, to the businesses that they're associating with. I should not be shamed for taking money away from indie authors. I also think it's fair for me to share on my platform. I don't agree with what Amazon's doing right now. I don't agree with who they currently support for this current political administration. And there are other alternatives out there, and what I'm doing on my platform is showing people that there are other alternatives to Amazon. I've had a few indie authors even comment on some of my bigger viral posts saying that with this, they're actually going to stop with Kindle Unlimited, take the hit, unfortunately, and open up their books to a wider audience. I think that we should allow room for competition in this space when it comes to Kindle Unlimited, not just only accept Kindle Unlimited as the end-all be-all. And I know I'm speaking from a place where I'm not an author, so I do not have this perspective. I have the perspective of the consumer. I am fortunate enough to be able just to pay for my books and move on, not have my career tied to something else. But it's just food for thought. I'm curious about people's thoughts on this, just because I've seen a lot of comments like this one saying, I'm taking money away from indie authors if I'm leaving Amazon. I just don't necessarily think that's fair or accurate, considering Amazon is the one that should be blamed for this, as well as for the publishing industry, making it so difficult for independent authors to actually get published. Let's point our fingers at them too, not consumers. Consumers are the only one trying to figure out where to ethically put our dollars.
Okay, so there's a lot to say about this one. All right, so I understand what she's trying to say. I just don't think it's necessarily being said well. And I kind of disagree with her sentiment, because obviously it's going to be different for different people. But we are hearing from authors that sell their books on Amazon that this is a good thing, that this is what's working for them. I don't think that as a consumer, we get to say what's good or bad. Of course, our money is allowed to go where we want it to. Money talks. And if we don't want to give a single penny to Amazon, that is absolutely the right of the consumer. But you do have to know that if an indie author is saying right now, this is what I'm able to do with my book, like, we need to trust them that if we want to support them, that's the best way to. I completely agree that Amazon, and specifically like Kindle Unlimited, should have competition. That would be amazing. But until that exists, right now, this seems like the best option for indie authors. And the way that, I guess she's saying, like, to find other sources, I mean, that just feels very privileged, because I've talked to several indie authors, and it costs a lot of money to publish a book on your own. And if this is a way to do that, I just don't feel like a lot of people have the resources to turn it down. Yeah, I think it's, again, something that would be really great if there was an alternative to, but right now that just doesn't seem to be the case. And this is what is the best thing for authors at this moment. I'm fully in support of, like, cutting off Amazon for everything else. Figure out another way to get everything else Amazon supplies for you. But I feel like this is just a little more nuanced. It's a little more complex than just cutting it all off. And again, like, physical books, go to an indie bookstore and buy those. And if you can get some indie published books from an indie bookstore, if you can ask them to order it, whatever, by all means do that instead. But with this whole, like, ebook situation, whether it's like an ebook you're purchasing or from Kindle Unlimited, it just seems like this is this is the best thing to do right now. I mean, anytime I think about like actually purchasing a Kindle book from an indie author, I always go to their website first. So definitely do that. I go to their website and see if it's available on there so I can directly pay them. And a lot of times it's better because then you get the file in EPUB format and then you own it, which is a conversation we've all been in recently. And I made a whole video about how you don't really own all your books on Kindle, yada, yada, yada. We've all heard about it. So, yeah, my opinion is that we as consumers are, of course, encouraged and allowed to choose where we spend our money. But I also don't think that a consumer gets to tell an author whether or not this is good or bad, because a lot of people just don't have another option. Most indie authors, at least at the beginning, are doing this while working another full-time job. And it's a full-time job, I think, to write a book and then hire an editor and then hire a cover designer. And like, there's so much that goes into it. And I don't think that a consumer gets to decide what's the best option for an author to publish and sell their books. So that's definitely one where I am interested in what you think about it. And let me know in the comments, because there's a lot to it.
No hate to the person that commented this, but I keep saying this on my video. Let's stop being fucking dense. This is the third book in a highly anticipated series. This is literally a Barnes & Noble exclusive. There is no reason why this should not have been front and center at every single Barnes & Noble. It should have been on the new release table. It should have had its own table. My Barnes & Noble had stickers and accessories next to this book because it is highly liked. This is not a series that no one likes. And I know I use Fourth Wing as an example. There are other books that have probably been out for months that are also sitting on those new release tables at Barnes & Noble, and that is crazy. I literally saw a video where the books are still sitting on the cart on release day at 2 p.m. That is absurd. This is why it is important to support your local indie bookstores if you can. I know they're not accessible to everyone, because Barnes & Noble and big box sellers cannot keep playing on our face like this when it comes to BIPOC authors, Black authors, anyone that is not a white author. This is crazy. And I'm tired of people acting intentionally dense, like we're like pulling this out of our asses. There is no reason why this rollout happened like this for this book. I'm so sorry.
I think this is a really good point, and it's one of those things, again, that like I don't get to decide, and I don't probably give enough thought to, being a white woman, that this would probably not be the case for a book like Fourth Wing. And even as someone who does not read fantasy at all, I have heard of this series, and I actually knew that this book was coming out. And I'm actually shocked that Barnes & Noble did not take the opportunity to monopolize on the huge following, this series has. Like, why wouldn't you make this a big thing? It just doesn't, it seems like bad business. And, I feel like people sometimes think of Barnes & Noble as like some sort of alternative to Amazon, not wanting to support Amazon. But like, guys, they're also a very large corporation, and it's the same thing. Maybe it's better because they all just sell books, but it's not really a huge thing that is different. Always support local, and if you don't have a place near you and you're going to order online anyways, go to bookshop.org and find a bookstore that you want to support, and it will be shipped to you. But yeah, there's no reason why a stack of highly anticipated books by a Black author should be sitting on a book cart on release day. It just feels like one of those things that is a little suspect.
So let's talk about Jane Austen's controversial makeover through Penguin's new First Impressions series. Now, this collection features striking neon modern covers paired with forewords by top romance authors. Now, these books are designed specifically for young adult readers and today's BookTok audience. But here's the twist. On one hand, this visual update is undeniably trendy and could open the door for a whole new generation to fall in love with Austen. But on the other hand, the website descriptions are are an absolute mess. They promise a fresh contemporary romance vibe, yet the reality is the classic 19th century language and social norms inside. A complete disconnect between cover expectation and text reality. Now, for longtime fans and literary purists, of which I am one, I see your worry that such a drastic shift could alienate folks who, like us, value the original tone and depth of her work. But the reality is, these books are not for us. We are not the target audience. But listen, the risk is real if readers are drawn in by the flashy covers, but end up super disappointed by the traditional prose and social norms that they find inside. And my fear is that that might turn them off from Austen forever, and that would be a huge shame. So the real question is, will their strategy attract new readers and start fresh conversations, or is it destined to fall flat? Let me know what you think in the comments.
Okay, so I feel like some of what she's saying is just really toeing the line of gatekeeping, where she says that people who really love the tone or whatever, like, all literature is open to interpretation and is there for, we can all get something different from the exact same piece of writing. So I feel like that, I mean, is a little bit borderline. Are we trying to make people feel bad for interpreting a story differently than you are, someone who's like, you know, read these books before? I think these covers are adorable, and yes, they are different from the original, like, ones that we think of that time period. And I'm sure this will turn some people off, but I think that it is a lot more enticing to pick up a book that looks like that if you've never read Jane Austen than some, like, of these classic covers. I'll try to put some here. You know, some of them can be beautiful in a different way, but this is such a trendy thing with the cartoon covers and all that. I mean, I think it's gonna attract people that might not have ever picked this up. And yes, I mean, the language can be hard to kind of comprehend if you are not familiar with that time period. But to me, that's like a great chance to learn. Not, you know, not everything needs to be like super easy reading. And I mean, I understand that what she's saying is that this cover might mislead a reader to think that it will be. But I don't think anyone's going to see Jane Austen on the cover. Anyone that reads enough knows who Jane Austen is. I mean, people that don't read know who Jane Austen is. So I think this is a really good idea. You know, I think that it's definitely a way to get classics into the hands of different readers that maybe would never pick this up because it just looks too intimidating. So it is something that I think could really be beneficial, especially if, you know, maybe this goes well and they do this for some other classics. I think it's a really good idea, especially given the fact that there's so many books based on Austen stories that I find it's kind of a lot easier to read a classic when you already have a pretty decent understanding of the original book. So I think that this is a really great idea and could really help some people get into classics that they never would have otherwise.
A new chain bookstore opened in my hometown, and I had the most painfully awkward experience trying to introduce myself to the bookseller. Okay, I went in the middle of a work day, nobody is there, place is empty. So I go up and look to see if they have my books, because most of these books, Small Town Monsters and Hatchet Girls, should be available. They're out through Random House. I check the shelves, I don't see them. I'm not that surprised, okay? So I go up to the bookseller behind the register. I've done this before. This is like my 9th book this time. I have had books traditionally published since 2008, so I have a whole spiel. I go and I hand her a couple of bookmarks, and I'm like, hey, you know, I'm a local author. I didn't see my 2 books on the shelves, you know, and I just wanted to come and say hi. Typically at this point, the bookseller just kind of like looks in their system to see if my books are in the store. Like maybe I just didn't find them. They could have been on a local author section, or like they could have been on a table, but she doesn't do that. She's just like, okay. And so I'm like, all right, you know, my next book, The Silence, you know, comes out in September through Random House. And she's like, great. And so now, like, I don't really know what to do. But then another woman comes over. She's noticeably older. And I'm thinking in my head, like, well, maybe this is the manager. So I could just skip ahead. They have this conversation about a phone call that came in. I'm like looking for an opportunity to like jump in. There isn't one. The woman rushes away. And the original bookseller never introduced me. So then I'm just sort of like standing there like, did I miss my opportunity? I don't know what I should have done. So I'm like, so like, do you want my email? Like in case your manager like wants to order my books, you know, I can come in and I'll sign them. And she's like, I mean, I guess. It was so awkward. It was so clear she just wanted me to get out of there as soon as possible. And I realized that this woman behind the counter could not have ordered my books, but I guess I just expected her to look them up, make sure that they weren't in the store. I don't know. But any of you indie authors out there who think us trad authors have it so much easier, we do not. Tell me your awkward bookstore encounters so I don't feel so, lonely about this.
Okay, obviously, I don't necessarily think it's the same situation for indie authors as it is for traditionally published authors. But it's funny to hear that it is awkward for everyone. I just thought that was a funny story, and it seems so relatable. Like any of us could have been standing there, like, okay, so, what next? I don't know. I feel like anytime I meet someone that wrote a book, I freak out and get excited. So I don't know. I actually, quick little side story. I was working a flight last week, and this woman had earrings that said something. And I was like, oh, what do your earrings say? It said, ask me about my book. And I was like, tell me about your book. And so she told me a little bit about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. Like, I just think that that's amazing. She was actually on her way to her book launch. And I was like, do you have a card or anything? I would love to check out your book. And she gave me, a little thing with her, a QR code to take me to the website and all of that. And I was just like, this is so great. I immediately bought her book on Kindle, and it was just so cool. I just can't imagine, maybe if you work in a bookstore and you see authors more often, but anytime that someone tells me they wrote a book, especially something that I would be interested in, this one that this woman wrote was a cozy type of mystery, and I will actually link it down below in case you want to read it. And I really thought that that was a really cool thing to happen. So I just, I don't know. It's interesting to hear about this from an author.
So I'm a book cover designer at Random House, and I freelance for other publishers too. And when we're working on a project, we usually go through a ton of options before we land on the final approved cover. Instead of letting them rot in the graveyard of killed covers forever, I thought I would resurrect them here and showcase just how much work goes into getting one cover approved. And we're starting with Jodi Picoult's By Any Other Name. I have done a ton of genres over the years, so if there's anything in particular you'd like to see, rom-coms, fantasies, thrillers, whatever, I'll try to pull from the vault.
I just think that is really cool to see how much goes into designing a cover, especially because they are so similar. I mean, some of those are just adding a leaf or that curl of hair, and that's just so interesting to see how these tiny details can change, what gets approved or not. I don't know. I just wanted to share that because I thought it was really cool. Okay, obviously that was short and kind of dumb, but I feel the same way. Okay, so when I was talking about how I'm gonna keep my Kindle until it dies, and then I plan to get a different e-reader. And so I was just out of curiosity, looking them up, and I don't know why I had it in my head that these were cheaper than Kindles. They are pretty much the same price. I think for the color one, maybe it's slightly less, but honestly, still pretty expensive, which is fine. I mean, if you're gonna own an e-reader, please buy this one instead of a Kindle. But I don't know. I was quite surprised at that, and clearly she was too.
Well, if you have a Kindle, what is your font size? Because I literally got made fun of the other day because my Kindle font size was humongous. But why are y'all reading newspaper letters? Can we calm down? My font size is 6. Is that too big? My font size is 6, and I think I have it on number 2 bold. This is the perfect size to read a book, and then I read fast as hell on it. Why the heck are y'all reading at font size 1? You read at font size 1, I feel like you're okay with reading a whole history textbook. Am I reading wrong? I'm confused. Let me know.
Guys, when are we gonna stop nitpicking people's lives like this? Who cares? It literally doesn't matter. I don't know if she's actually being serious in that people have been bothering her about it, but what? Who cares? I feel like mine is at a similar font size as hers. And honestly, I go back and forth. Sometimes I make it a little bigger, sometimes I make it a little smaller. It's just like one of those things, like, I can't believe this is where we're at in this like BookTok world where people are being criticized for the font size on their Kindle. Like, just what are we doing? What are we doing?
I work somewhere that's bookstore adjacent. My boss today was talking about the meeting she's about to go into discussing the tariffs. Where little Susie with the $10 paperbacks? What's her name, Susie? Was it Sarah? Where's she at? I blocked her account name. I need to find her. So every time I go to a bookstore and I see a $10, every time I open a box, and those paperbacks are not $10, I'm gonna hit her up.
So, I mean, a lot of you probably already know what what video this was referring to, but right after the United States election, this girl came on here who honestly didn't even look old enough to vote. I don't know if she is though, but she was screaming about how because Trump won that there'll be $10 paperbacks now, which is confusing because like what are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. Like why would those things be related? But as you can probably tell slash you already know, like nothing's gotten cheaper since Trump became president. So it's just one of those things. I mean, plenty of people called the girl out when it happened. She did not seem really to care, but plenty of people were like, what the hell are you talking about? And it seems like probably more people are just going to be like coming for her and just being like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you even say this? And so, you know, I know that this is said, you know, in jest, in a sort of like, I told you so way, but so no one actually go after her, whatever. But yeah, it is interesting that like she was so boldly proclaiming that books were going to be cheaper and like, what? Why would that be a thing? Moving on. Actually, just kidding. This is where I'm going to end this video because I think that is just enough of me yapping for the day. I want to know what you think about these, particularly that first one regarding Amazon and indie authors. Like, definitely want to know what you have to say about that. So definitely check out my other TikTok videos if you haven't yet. And I would love, once again, to hear your feedback. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you would comment for engagement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!